So percent increase and decrease comes into play a lot in the news when you're looking at statistics or data, sales, discounts, taxes, all that kind of stuff. And it's very handy. Of all the math we do this year, the percent increase and decrease will probably be the most useful just in your everyday lives. So increases in number are usually described in percents. Instead of saying going up by 12 or down by 3, we say it goes up by 10% or down by 2%. There's always a part, total, and a decimal, just like before, like what you're used to. The part is not always in the question. Sometimes you have to calculate the part, because the part is the difference between where you started and where you ended. So you sometimes have to find the difference. Okay, to find the percent increase and decrease, the total is the original amount. So it's where you started from. So from the example, if you started at 40, that's your total. That's your original, that's your denominator. The part is the change. The part is that it went up or down by, the difference between where you started and ended. So the part is where you started and ended. The difference doesn't matter the order, all you want is a value. So there's 5. There's 5 between 40 and 45, and that's your part. Then you can figure out the decimal. You have your part and you have your total, which is where you started. One way to look at this is the change over top of the original, where you started. And then you find the decimal. So the part was 5, the total was 40. So 5 is what percent of 40? And if we do 5 divided by 40, we get 12.5%. So you would say that it was a 12.5% increase. So to go from 40 to 30, that's a decrease. So what is the percent decrease? How do I find that? 40 to 30, so the part is always going to be the change, the amount change. 40 take away 30 leaves 10. So there's my part. 40 is where I've started from, so that's my total. And the percent I get, so the percent is the part over the total, 10 over 40, 25%. So you would say that from 40 to 30 is a 25% decrease. Let's try this problem. The attendance on Friday was 35 people. On Saturday, it was 42. What was the percent increase? So this is where I've started. It was 35 people, so that's my total. My part is the difference between Friday and Saturday. Because it's just the difference, you just need a number. So I'm going to go 42 take away 35. Whatever is the bigger number, take away the smaller number. 42 take away 35 is 7. So there's my part. My percent is the part, or the change, over the total. That is 7, because it changed by 7, over 35. In your calculator, you'll do 7 divided by 35, and you should end up with 0.20 times 100, and you get 20%. So the way you would word this, it went from 35 to 42, so you would say it was a 20% increase. Sometimes we're not told the amount of the increase, the value of the increase, but we're told the percent. So it could be that you start somewhere, you start at 20, and you increase by 10%. Increase by 10% means we're adding a number of some sort, but we don't know the number, we don't know the value. 10% of 20 is that value. So what you need to do every single time, find the original number, that's your starting point, calculate the part. So calculate the increase. It'll be 10% of 20, and then add that part to the total. So let's try an example here. So 40, that's our start point. It's increased by 30%. There's our decimal. But we need to know the part. And the part is this, 30% of what we started with. So 30% of 40, decimal 3 times 40 is 12. So it was increased by 12. So 40 was increased by, change that to a 3, 30%. That means an increase of 12. 40 plus 12 is 52. The final value is 52. So a real world example of this could be there were 40 people at the chess club on Monday, and on Wednesday it had increased by 30%. That means 12 more people came, and there was a final number of 52. So another example, 80 decreased by 20%. 1, I'm going to find the change. And the way I find the change is to find 20% of 80, because that was the change. 0.20 times 80 gives me 16, I believe. 0.2 times 80. So the change was 16, and it's a decrease, which means I've gone down by 16. My second step is to find the end result. And that involves subtraction. I started at 80, I decreased by 16, which gives me 80 take away 10 is 70, take away another 6, 64. So there's my final answer, my final value. So there were 30 students in the class, and then Mrs. Bartlett reduced class sizes by 20%. How many students were left in the class, or left the class? So we started at 30 students. We decreased by 20%. How many students left? So what was the decrease? So what is this value? And then what was the new class size? So that's two things we need to figure out. We're starting at 30. We have our decrease of 20, but how much is that actually? And then what's the new size? So to start this one, we should probably find out what 20% of 30 is. So let's start with that. So 20% of 30. This will tell us how many kids left. 0.20 times 30. 0.20 times 30, I believe, is 6. So 6 kids left the class. If 6 kids left, what is the new class size? 30 is what we started with. Take away the change, 6, equals 24. So the new class size is 24.